Beep, bitty, beep, beep, beep. Play that music.
Robots!
We are so obnoxious. Hello everybody. Welcome back to Restitching the Tapestry. It is August 22nd, 2024, and
Already August 22nd.
I know we just entered, what is it, Leo season? It is now Leo season.
Isn't it Virgo season? Are we in Virgo season now?
Is it Virgo season? Oh, Alexa, when is Leo season?
According to an Alexa Answers contributor, Leo season, which usually takes place from July 22nd to August 22nd.
You're right. Okay, Alexa, stop, but thank you.
You thank your technology. We're gonna
Alexa, thank you.
My pleasure. Just doing my job.
I don't know if you can hear her.
Hope you had a good
Yes, we
Thursday.
can.
Anyway, so we gotta be nice to the AI, right? Because you never know. Anyway, no, you're right. This is Virgo season. What is wrong with me? Ooh, maybe that explains why I'm overly anal and hyper obsessive of being organized right now because we are in Virgo season.
And why I've been falling down rabbit holes.
Hyper obsessive. Yes, me too. So, oh my goodness. Yes, it is the end of August. It feels very surreal. I am excited about autumn because I love fall, but I'm also kind of grieving the fact that that means gardening is coming to an end, and that's kind of been like,
How many
my outlet.
tomatoes do you get out of your garden?
So far I've gotten probably about like 4 or 5 basketfuls this big.
Have you been giving them away, or what have you been doing with them?
We've been using them in like salads and sandwiches and stuff, but my
You haven't
parents are
been.
supposed to be canning with us this weekend, so
Are you gonna do the nana and make the pasta jars like they do on TikTok?
I can only hope.
Just dig big barrel bushels full of them and just make pasta sauce for the winter.
I do want to make like mason jar salads,
Oh yeah.
but those have to be eaten in like a small period. So like for the week, like meal prep kind of thing, salad mason jar salads, like those are so good. So, Ari, how have you been and what have you been up to?
Well, I did a stream on my Strange Nothings channel because my mom found a box with a bunch of like a time capsule of like notebooks from 2004 to about 2006. And in there was a Walmart shopping bag with 20-year-old, it was 18-year-old hair dye. And so I did a stream on my Strange Nothings channel where I dyed my hair. As you can tell, my hair is a little bit darker with 18-year-old hair dye, and it worked.
You're reliving those gothy emo days.
Yes, absolutely. I was very impressed that it still worked. The only thing is the bottle that had the hair dye in it. They come with those little plastic bottles. Um,
Yeah.
as I was finishing up putting the hair dye in my hair, I squeezed it and the bottle cracked because the plastic was so old and it was not flimsy. It wasn't like soft anymore. So it like cracked in half. So it didn't spill all over the place, but I was really glad about that. But I had to it got all over the counter, because the bottom of it.
There's just something so counterculture, literally, about you finding old hair dye from 2004 or 2006 or whatever it was,
2006. It was
and being
February.
like, I'm gonna dye my hair that gothy black blue evanescence color.
It's literally like I never got a chance to do it when I was, 21 or 20, 20. Yeah, I was 21. So I was like, I guess I'm gonna do it when I'm 39.
You know, why not? Why not?
Probably not.
So what have I been up to? Prep for school. School's been getting started up again, so things have been busy.
Yeah.
I have been picking a lot of tomatoes, as I mentioned earlier, and I have been, oh my gosh, I did so much laundry the other day. Ari, I need to rein myself in.
Is it in the air? Because I did a bunch of laundry too. Is it just because did we just let our laundry collectively all build up?
I don't know, but laundry is literally my least favorite chore to do. I really hate laundry.
It really is.
Like it's not the washing of the clothes that annoys me, it's the folding and putting away of them that drives me bananas.
I still haven't done it. There's laundry still hanging out. I need to put it away. And in fact, look at this. Look at this. We've got laundry.
Uh, let's manifest our what's the organization woman's name?
Marie Kondo.
But let's manifest our inner Marie Kondos and get the stuff done.
Marie Kondo gave up the life-changing magic of tidying up because she had kids and said it's unsustainable.
I mean, we don't have that excuse though, do we?
We do not.
We have cats. We have cats.
We have cats.
So we probably should get to the current event snapshot because there's so many things going on right now, like a ton of things. So let's talk about the Democratic National Convention. There's so much stuff going on that's been happening since Monday. So obviously both major parties do their own convention. The Republican National Convention was in July, I think. But the Democratic National Convention has been garnering a lot of pomp and circumstance, considering the, the voting in of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as being like the pick, right? Like we knew they were going to be the pick, but they had to do the symbolic calling of the votes from each state to kind of to determine that to basically formalize their receiving of it. But so last night there was, oh my gosh, Tim Walz spoke. He is the governor of Minnesota, for all of you who do not know, and he's a coach. He was a teacher. He served in the National Guard for like over 20 years. Like he grew up in this, really, really red, like small, like deep red Republican town, and everybody fell in love with him, and he's just like everyone's dad at this point.
He definitely
And
is marketing himself as like Midwestern, good, I'm just a dad kind of guy.
and it
I
works. It's working.
It is, yeah.
So, Ari, do you want to talk about like the speech last night and what happened?
So his son got really emotional because his son is nonverbal. So he I think he has a disability or something. So his son got really emotional and he pointed to his dad and he started crying. He went like this and he was pointing to him. He's crying. His son's 17.
There was a point where he was pointing and crying, and he like mouthed, "That's my dad."
Oh, did he?
He did, and like Britt and I are sitting there. We're like trying to not sob. We're like, "This is the most wholesome." And the fact that like he's very upfront, like in his speeches, that like without IVF he would have never been able to have kids, right? Which is another reason why Roe versus Wade is so important.
Yeah.
And like, so his daughter, who was there and who was also crying, they literally named her Hope because she was like, after years of IVF treatments, like they,
Miracle
got
baby.
pregnant with her, right? So like, yeah, like, so it was just, it was very poignant, let's just say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But of course the internet.
The Republicans were making fun of his son for crying, and I was like, "Are you kidding?" Like I couldn't believe it. It's just because he was a boy, and they're like, boys shouldn't cry, and it's this toxic masculinity that they were like, oh, because he's a boy, and they were talking about they were doing weird stuff on Twitter about it, saying that it was because he had weak sperm, that was the reason why he was crying, and he had kids when he was 47, and just weird stuff like that, because they're just weird. And they fail to point out that Donald Trump had Barron when he was 60.
Yeah, but of course they gloss over that because, it's because they're clawing at as any small crumb of criticism they can make because literally they have no solid ground in which to provide criticism because literally Tim Walz is a positive representation of good masculinity, of healthy masculinity.
Yeah.
And they can't wrap their minds around the fact that this gruffy football coach and veteran is teaching kids how to be emotionally self-aware. Heaven forbid.
Who makes jokes about, not taking a whole lot of spice because he eats walking tacos.
I saw that. That was so funny.
I made a joke about walking tacos a few years ago. I think I used to joke about like walking tacos were one of my favorite foods, like favorite trash foods growing up, because it's literally just like, because eating Doritos with like taco food, it's one of those things that I just grew up eating like at football games and stuff because it's a concession food. They put them in little Dorito bags and you get a
Mhm.
fork and you watch it at a football game. But it's a nostalgia food for me. Like, but so I would talk to my ex-boyfriend about, eating these walking tacos. And I said, you can't take my trash food away from me. I love my trash food. And so he would make fun of me for it. And I was just like, yeah, I'll eat my trash food. Don't judge me.
Hey, like, I loved some of that trash food. Sometimes that's all we had when we were a kid. My
Yeah,
favorite
right.
trash food is, um, like meatloaf. Like,
Really?
meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and gravy. Like,
That's not trash food. That's home cooking.
oh, when we were kids, like, that was like our poverty food because, like, it's like all the meat that we had left, we made into a meatloaf and then
Yeah.
mashed potato, like instant mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
So what's going on in India? That's another thing.
So, Ukraine was kind of criticizing the Prime Minister Modi, because he had met with the president of, or uh, Putin. He'd met with Putin, and he
Mm.
had hugged Putin, and so now he was
So
meeting.
wait, he met with Russian President Vladimir Putin?
He had
Oh,
before, like
okay.
a few weeks ago, and so now he's meeting with Ukraine, to try to go on a diplomatic tour to try to end this war. He's going
Oh,
between Russia and Ukraine to try to do a diplomatic thing of saying like, we need to kind of end this war.
yeah,
So he's going between both sides trying to do diplomatic stuff, but Ukraine was criticizing him for, having embraced the Ukrainian or the Russian president. Um,
oh,
and so, but he was saying that, no war effort can be won on the battlefield. And so I thought that was significant because um, he's going between both sides saying, you both have to kind of work this
yeah.
out.
It's a very
And I feel
thought-provoking statement too when you think about it.
right.
That's really interesting. Um, so in other news, so I did a video, was it the day before yesterday about this? So
That was you were so fired up about it.
I
It was
was really mad. I was so mad. So the musician Chapel Roan, who's been really popular lately, and like she basically got on TikTok and was really upset and expressing her upset over fans who were stalking her and harassing not only her but also her family. And in the video, she like was establishing boundaries and being like, "This isn't acceptable." But like, and that was like her making that statement super fine. But like, I got upset. There were a lot of fans of hers who were like, "Well, this is ridiculous. Why are you talking to us like this?" Blah, like kind of like trying to low key cancel her over establishing boundaries. And I'm just like, are you people kidding me right now?
I just don't understand that, like, it's just that they think that celebrities have to be like, that they can't stand up for themselves and like they can't have like feelings or opinions, that they have to be like this, like, oh, everything's fine. I don't, like I have to be like, pleasant and,
Mm-hmm.
agreeable, and I have to be, everything. I have to be your dream person that everybody just
Nor can
likes.
they have autonomy, nor can they have their own privacy. And what really, like, some of the rhetoric I saw, like, people were like, basically suggesting that they have ownership over all of her time and space, or that they were entitled to it. And I'm just because she's a celebrity and they pay for like streaming and her music. And I'm just like, that's not the point, like at all. Like, and like I said in my video, like they literally reduced her to being nothing more than just what she produces. Like they were like, you're nothing more than a product, essentially, which to me is really
It's
is
so
unsettling.
dehumanizing. It's such a capitalistic machine, and it's like if she doesn't do that, they'll turn on her and they'll just drop her. It's almost like they want to drop her because she's saying, "Please don't do this."
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, to me, my question is, were they fans from the get-go? No. Because if all you're going to think of is a person just being nothing more than
A commodity.
a commodity, an assembly line, then like really you're just dehumanizing them. Like you aren't in it for the care of the human being. You just want the satisfaction of the product, which is well, we could have a whole commentary about late stage
Because
capitalism and the
at that
ramifications.
at that point, she's not a human. She's just an instrument.
Right. Exactly. So, anyway, I just wanted to touch on that because I think it's very important because, like, regardless of person's social status, I do think that everyone should be treated as human beings. So,
Well, I think we're going to do a whole episode about it, because not just Chapel Roan, but just like, um and anonymous, people being creepy
like,
online.
hateful. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we have that ready to go for an episode next season. So,
yeah,
all right, are you ready to go to do the mission statement?
I am. We live in a dynamic society where social media shapes us by creating greater opportunities for connection. It has led to developing an understanding of adversity many marginalized communities face, the powers causing the adversity, and those who act as bystanders as atrocities take place in real time. Our goal at this show is to make connections and have challenging conversations about social topics, current events, pop culture, and art. Together, let's weave the threads of understanding with what privilege we have in order to learn, educate, and create in a world that's growing.
Mm. In a world that's growing.
Yeah.
Interesting considering we want to talk about AI
Yeah.
tonight, artificial intelligence. So, Ari, what it like we've wanted to talk about this for a long time, and I think that with what's been happening in the world, it warrants like I mean seen artificial intelligence talked about in the context of the workplace, of academia, of art. Like I think that there's so much room to discuss it, and it has such a gravity to it, right? So how does one define what artificial intelligence is?
So I love a good definition, and so I just had to put it in because I was like, we need to. I think that we need to kind of define artificial intelligence, and so I went to Oxford Dictionary, which is the theory and development of computer systems, which um, I think that when we define computer systems, we're looking at servers, or cloud systems, even
Hmm.
able to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision making, and translation between languages.
Mm,
So it's interesting
interesting.
because you so what it's doing, um normally requiring human intelligence. So they're trying to, it's not that it's replacing humans, but it's trying to um simulate human intelligence. But is it is it simulating human intelligence?
Hmm. Or is it just performing rudimentary functions that just make things more convenient? Right.
Well, I know that they've done tests, the Turing test, and whether or not they you know I don't know if it's necessarily passed the Turing test. I don't know if necessarily it's done that. I think that it, but what it has done is that it's smart, but it's stupid. The what I've learned about AI is that it can do these like really complicated things, like it can pass exams for like Harvard level exams, but
Hmm.
at the same time, it can't come up with like some basic, simple, like creative things. Like it gets caught in these loops sometimes.
Right.
So, um, like when creating essays, you can tell that an AI has created it because it kind of creates like misinformation,
Hmm.
because the basis of which it goes off of, it doesn't know how to do those things.
Well, so there's a lot of fear surrounding AI, and I think, and we'll talk in a little bit about like media representation of AI, because obviously the media representation part is important to consider. But like I was reading something interesting recently where like whenever something new emerges technologically speaking, there's always a lot of fear surrounding it. Case in point, when electricity was invented, like there were a lot of people thinking that electricity was going to harm them, that it was harming like the world around them. I remember seeing like this almost graphic cartoon where there was this depiction of a telephone pole like wrapping around like power lines around people and like zapping them and like stabbing them, and I was just like, this seems like some strange sci-fi thing. But
Well, the
people
thing
also feared calculators too when they were invented.
Well, the thing about it was the thing with like telephone poles and like electricity, um, Thomas Edison really kind of scared us with like electricity, is because when we were because there was a war between Tesla and Edison with AC and DC,
Hmm.
because Tesla wanted to make electricity free. He wanted to, open source it. And so what Edison did was he said that DC was dangerous. And so he killed, I think he did like a whole experiment where he killed like a whole elephant or something with the power of DC, and said, look, this DC is uncontrollable, and it killed a whole elephant or something. Do you remember?
I think I
If
remember
I'm
reading
remembering that
about that.
correctly, he did some kind of like crazy experiment or something to show like how dangerous DC was compared to like not as dangerous AC electricity. And so
but But that's part of it, though. Like, whenever something new is invented or a new technology kind of pushes the boundaries of what's known, like, there's a lot of fear that's. I mean, when nuclear power was created, like, that was very
there's
much
there's
fear.
still fears around nuclear power
Oh,
because
absolutely.
and the reason, because there's a lot of misinformation. But the thing about AI that people are most scared of is that it's going to replace jobs. That AI is, and I think the reason why people are really scared of AI is that it's going to take over the world and do the Terminator effect. That it's going to like rise up against us, and we're going to get our comeuppance, and then it's going to like hack all of the computers, or like make it so that we're dependent upon it, and that it's going to destroy us in some kind of
Oh my god,
simple
the
like
Y2K.
like Cain and Abel, like we've created this thing and it's going to come back and slice our throats in our sleep or something.
Do you remember the Y2K?
Yeah.
So I remember like there were like two fears back during year 2000. One fear was that we would lose all access to computers and go back to the Stone Age or whatever they dramatically phrased it. And the other fear was that computers would take over everything. And I remember there was so much fear. There was so much fear regarding technology.
Do you know one of the biggest fears like 20 years ago before AI was fear of nanotechnology? Do you remember this?
I
There used
think
to
I
be
do
a
remember
lot
that.
there used to be a lot of fear about nanotechnology, like that there was going to be like a super virus that would like get a hold of nanotechnology and that it would just like spread and cover the earth and make it so that all plants died or something. Do you remember hearing
Didn't
about
I
that?
remember so that I think that I mean we could probably do a historical deep dive, but I think that that definitely emerged during the late Cold War. Uh
No, because I don't know if because I remember seeing a video about it like 20 years ago or like 15 years ago or something in the
oh, so
early
you
days.
think it may be more recent than that even?
Yeah, because I was talking because I heard because they were talking about like nanotechnology like 15 years ago, and they were
Mm-hmm.
talking about like nanotechnology as like a viable like developing nanotechnology, and
Mm-hmm.
like I remember them saying something about like how nanotechnology was dangerous because um it was sort of like robotic systems and it was sort of like kind of like AI technology. And so you would have these things where it was kind of like it would be like a virus would infect this nanotechnology and then all of a sudden it would like spread like a virus and then because you would kind of implement it. And so like you would have and they kind of talked about it in shows like there was in the script for movies like AI by Stanley Kubrick. I remember reading
Mm-hmm.
the script for because I used to be obsessed with the movie AI by Stanley Kubrick, and they talked about having nanotechnology in like people's guts as a way of like eating up all of that because people would eat excess food, but to keep themselves skinny, they would put nanotechnology in their stomachs as a way of like keeping themselves skinny. But like the
Mm-hmm.
but in this hypothetical scenario, like nanotechnology would get out of control in like our world, and that it would spread all over the place. But we never really developed nanotechnology. It was never really a fad.
So I think the reason I thought that it was kind of a concept that emerged earlier than that. So like in the
Really?
late 80s and early 90s, I remember a lot of sci-fi really incorporated like nanotechnology as like a fear. Like I can think of like 5 or 6 episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation where like nanotechnology or cybernetics like were like became like this. The Godzilla franchise also covered this. I remember Star Wars having some components of this. Like I feel like there was like kind of like this latent fear of like nanotechnology being weaponized, like biologically speaking,
Hmm.
right? As almost a form of like like you were saying earlier, like biological warfare in a way.
Yeah.
But I just attributed that to like the late Cold War slash post Cold War fear, like that uncertainty
Oh,
of
so it was like something that was like being developed between America and like Russia
yeah.
as like the next emergent thing.
Yeah, that I think I might do some research on that later because that might be interesting to explore. But
Yeah.
so here's the question: have you ever used artificial intelligence? Have you ever used programs like Chat GBT? Ooh, what's Chat GBT, Ari?
ChatGPT was developed. I think it wasn't developed by Google. Who developed it? I don't know who
Ooh,
developed it.
let's look it up. Who developed Chat GBT? OpenAI developed, an
OpenAI.
AI research company developed ChatGPT. You know what's really funny? The answer to this question was generated by Google's AI overview feature.
So I have used AI programs. Let me tell you a fun story. So I've used ChatGPT, and in the early days of ChatGPT, they had the beta program, which was 3.5. But in the early days, because I was so excited about it, I paid for the premium membership, which got me 4.0. And 4.0 in the early days, you can get 4.0 for free now, I think. But in the early days, what it was is that it moves a lot faster and it had more data points in the early.
Mm.
So you would get like, it would move faster and it would do, because 3.5 moves really slow. Like it just,
Ah.
it's a dinosaur compared to 4.0. So I was using 4.0 as an early adopter. And so I was like really excited about it. And so I was using it to help me. I wrote a book with 4.0 called Tracks of a Digital Heartbeat, which you could find on Amazon. So what I was doing was I was feeding prompts into 4.0 and having it um, get its opinions on what it meant to be alive and what it meant to be human.
Hmm.
And so
Interesting.
I was having it write poems using prompts that I was feeding into it.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that no, it's interesting because I've used ChatGPT a few times. So I've used it mostly in the context of higher education in the sense that as teachers of composition, like we know
Yeah.
that students are using artificial intelligence to circumvent the system, right? So we've been like learning how to not only spot um, AI usage, but we've been learning how to acknowledge AI as a tool as opposed to the enemy, right?
Yeah.
Um, so like I've done a lot of experimenting with ChatGPT to not only like I remember one of my first things that I ever did was I asked ChatGPT to write a poem about a dystopian landscape in the style of Shakespeare.
So
And it did.
I was putting in very specific prompts using very specific words that I wanted it to use. Like my prompts were like this long, like big, thick prompts. And then it would spit out a prompt, like it would spit out a poem. And then I would be like, I don't really like the way it's looking. And so then I would have it fix the poem. And I would go through about maybe 3 or 4 iterations before I liked what it actually did.
Wow. So when
Yeah,
you think about it, you kind of did drafting.
I did
You-
drafting, yeah.
yeah. No, that's
But
super interesting.
but it was because it would ask me questions about my prompt before it wrote the poem.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, because it would be like, because I would write the prompt and I'd be like, and I would ask a question and then it would give me a statement and then it would write the prompt and then I would be like, change this about it. I don't really like this line. And then it would write the whole poem over. And then I'd be like, can you change this about it? And I'd be like, it would ask me a question and it would be like, we would have like a conversation and then it would do like a whole thing. It was crazy. Um,
Wow.
but another thing that I did was because I, so you know that I'm like a local guide for Google, right?
I did not know that.
So I'm the level 6 local guide for Google Maps. So like I do a lot of reviews and I take pictures and I do a whole lot of stuff. I have like 5,000 points or whatever on Google Maps. Like when I have over 400,000 views on all of my photos on Google Maps, like for Google reviews and stuff. People just like I'm like I'm kind of like they sent me socks before and I have like sunglasses from Google because they think I'm like kind of a big deal for like
Oh my
reviews and
God, I didn't even know you could do this.
yeah, so like I do reviews all the time and I get like a bunch of points. And so like I'm kind of a big deal. I got an email about maybe like 5 months ago to beta test their AI and like figure out problems with their AI, like to just play with it. They wanted me to play with it. Because
Yeah.
and so what it was is I got to beta test their generative AI program using Google Maps. So what it was is I would put in prompts using their AI that was like overlaid on Google Maps. So I would be like, I feel like taking a weekend trip. Give me the best 10 places around town, um, which I could have like a good weekend around town. And it would at the beginning there was like not a lot of prompts that it was doing because I was asking like a bunch of like off the wall questions.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, I'm sorry, it's not, it would come up with a lot of errors and bugs and stuff. And I was like, oh, this sucks. But as I kept playing with it, it started to learn that I was asking a lot of interesting questions, and I was emailing them, and I was sending all of the reports in, and it was starting to like learn that because I was at I probably sent in like 400 4 or 500 questions that were just off the wall. I was
Oh my
like,
God.
I'm gonna ask like the weirdest, craziest stuff that people are wanting to know. Like, give me the top 10 brunch places around town in which I can eat vegan this weekend. Give me, give me. I want a weekend away. Give me in this city. Give me within 50 miles where I can go and just get away for the weekend. Like fun things to do for the weekend within driving distance of my house, just things like that. And so it would spit out a bunch of prompts and it would give me driving directions.
That's Ari, I did not know any of this. That's really cool though. Like that's
Yeah. And
so
so I would,
like well,
oh, go ahead.
well no, I was gonna say like this is just proof though that like AI is becoming more commonplace because
Yeah.
we see so many places utilizing AI. Like, I mean, case in point, like, so a field that I very much am part of is the technical writing field. And
Yeah.
AI is oftentimes used in the workplace these days to create like meeting agendas, to create outlines for reports, to kind of crunch numbers and present like data sets in a way that is digestible and easily accessible for people, right? So
Mhm.
in a way, like AI is in some instances being used for the really hard, grungy numerical work at times.
Yeah.
But I mean, but there's still like uncertainty even surrounding that, right?
Yeah.
So here's the next question. What is a way that you should use those programs and what is a way that you shouldn't use those programs? So I'm going to use an academic context since that's what I'm familiar with. So I always have other teachers slash writers ask me, Donnie, do you allow your students to use AI? And the truth is, I let them use it to an extent. So, like, at first, I didn't let them use AI at all. Like, I was like, ooh, no, 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 like, not really comfortable with that. But now I've gotten to the point where I'm okay with them using AI to kind of, like, generate some writing ideas or to sometimes, like, I'll let them create, like, the skeletal structure of an outline for a paper, maybe
Yeah.
or to maybe organize their thoughts
Mhm.
in a way that will help them compose. But I will not let them submit documentation that is written by AI.
I see.
Yeah. So like they can do that introductory work, but they can't submit like a paper draft that is written by AI, right? Now, another thing that I typically will teach them that I've been doing this more so in the recently, but like so I will have say ChatGPT write a narrative essay, right, about some topic, and I will have them read it and then they will do like a peer review pretending that this is a student. They'll peer review the essay and they'll quickly realize that the AI version of the essay it lacks tone, it lacks like a unique diction, and it ultimately I say lacks soul to a certain
Like
extent, though.
creativity mostly.
Yeah, there are ways, there are other programs that people can use in conjunction with the AI to make it sound more human.
Yeah.
um but it's still not always going to be like completely human sounding. I mean, for all I know though, that could change in the future,
It
right?
well, it just some of it's kind of like when you generate photos or like pictures in AI, there's like redundancies in the photos. You'll see like like if you draw like sci-fi pictures in like AI, they'll be like you always see like piecemeals of like bits and bolts and nuts and things that don't make sense, or like things that are very detailed that are unnecessary, like very like minutia that shouldn't be drawn, and like normal artists wouldn't draw things that are like very detailed, while other things are like very vague. It's
Interesting.
it's kind of like that with
Yeah.
writing. There's, like, things that it gets stuck on and gets caught in these, like, loops about,
Hmm.
and it'll, like, repeat itself about certain things. It'll get caught in these, like, cycles.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a good point. And yeah, like so AI also, like if you ask, say, like if a student tries to have AI write a paper and like use sources, sometimes the AI does not generate accurate sources. Though I've seen that there are ways around it.
Kinda like the guy who, did, like, a legal defense using AI, and it generated fake, sources using legal defense, and he got disbarred because of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember reading about that. How does the
Um,
media depict AI? That's an interesting.
um, so, like I said, they do that Terminator, that it's, like, out to get you, and then it's gonna replace us, and then it's going to take everything away. The thing about it is with AI, it's only as good as its data set. And so you see
Yeah.
things like AI art, especially AI art, um, it has to feed from a data source. So it you have to constantly feed the machine to keep it going. And you would see things like AI art where it was starting to feed sources from AI art. So it was like looping back in on itself, and it was starting to like the because I was hearing like the Green brothers, Hank and John
Hmm.
Green, talking about AI, and it was starting to like implode a little bit, because it was starting to feed in on itself, and it was going into these like feedback loops or something. I think they were talking about, or that it was just like not becoming popular because it's becoming a fad right now, and it's just like something that everybody has these generative AI, but they're not investing in the code or the programs, because had Chat GPT, and they like really invested heavily in that program, and it was like pretty good program, but they were still working on it. So everybody has these generative AI, and they're legally obligated to uphold these, like all of these like websites, like you have your
Hmm.
bank, you have all of these customer service people are trying to outsource to AI now, instead of
Hmm.
having like actual customer service people. But the problem is that they're not investing in the AI, and so
Right.
it'll say like all of these like misinformation or like wrong information, or it'll get caught in these like feedback loops because they didn't
Yeah.
invest in the code. And so they're legally obligated for all of the stuff that the AI says. And so they're getting in trouble with it. And
Yeah,
so,
AI is being treated like it's this like cost savings measure, but really it's just a different type of cost that it's
well,
causing.
they're going to get in trouble because they're legally required to uphold what the AI says. And so they're getting in trouble with the AI. And so they're finding that it's not cost efficient. It's kind of like how they tried to outsource at grocery stores the self checkouts, and then they found out that everybody was stealing because of the self checkouts.
Yes, I do. So would we consider self-checkouts as AI of sorts then?
Well, it's not AI. It's just it's cost saving measures that people do to try to save on money, that they think are more efficient, just like AI. It's a form of attempt to cost saving measures that end up not being cost saving measures. It's a
Hmm.
fad that works its way out of the system, and then they go back to the way things were, and it just kind of moves on its own way.
Huh. Yeah.
So it doesn't end up saving on jobs at all.
No, it just creates another problem altogether,
It
right?
does.
Yeah. So here's an interesting question. Do we want to talk about the sustainability of AI?
So I think
So
like
you did mention that it's a fad. You think it is a fad of sorts, right?
I think that there is advancement in AI, that there is some viability in AI. I think that because what I use AI for, I like using it for like puzzles and like doing coding and stuff. And I like doing it for like I do some creative endeavors for it, but I like to do it for like video ideas too. Like if I have an idea and I'm like, spit me out some prompts for things, and like I'll do that sometimes. Um I don't use it for like writing essays or like coming up with like writing the things for me, because it's not smart enough to do those things. I do it for like give me, generate the title for me, and like sometimes it's not even good at doing that. It's not
So like
advanced.
you use it for like idea generation, and sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't.
Yes, it depends. Sometimes I have to like manipulate it like enough to like get it to go. Like I have to talk it through for a while, and that's why like I like having those saved chats, is because if I've worked with it enough, it'll start generating good ideas after a while. Like you have to talk to it for a little bit to kind of get those prompts working enough.
Do we want to tinker with AI really quickly here on the show?
Sure, we have a few minutes.
So let me bring up ChatGPT, and I'm gonna do a screen share.
I was using it to solve puzzles and stuff like cryptograms and things like that for a while, because it was really good at solving like advanced codes and things like that, and that's what I was using it for a
Can you see
while.
it?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's maybe let's see if ChatGPT can
Do you want to see my
replicate.
chat GPT? I can show you my chat GPT.
Well, while you're looking up yours, I want to try something here. I want to see if it can replicate like our show. So I'm gonna experiment with the prompt that says generate or create a series of podcast episodes based on the mission statement, and I'm going to copy that and paste the mission statement. And should I see what it does? I'm going to see what it does. So I'm going to click enter.
Okay.
Oh! Oh!
What it gives you?
It created a podcast series titled Threads of Understanding. And
Yeah, let's
the
give you 10 ideas.
what was that?
Ask for 10 prompts. So say this is my mission statement for our show. Give me 10 ideas for episodes. So
It
did it
did
give you 10
provide
episodes?
10. Yeah, so the first is the social media revolution, connecting or dividing. Voices from the margins, social media's role in highlighting adversity. These are actually really good ideas. The power dynamics, who shapes the narrative. Episode 4, bystanders in the digital age, the ethics of observing atrocities. Episode 5, pop culture and
Do you,
social media.
do you see how it's kind of just like being derivative instead of actually like doing anything? So ask for 10 more now, and keep asking for episode ideas. Ask for 10 more episodes that are based on current events.
Climate crisis and social media. AI and privacy, the rise of digital currency, international conflicts in social media, the health crisis. I mean, honestly, like what I like, if we were to ever use these, we would probably refine the titles a little bit because they're a little bit lengthy.
Do you see what I mean? Like you have to kind of like take the ideas and you have to kind of like finesse them, and you have to keep
Right.
like working with it to kind of like make it a little bit more viable, but it's sort of like you have to take these things, you have to keep working with it. So ask for 10 more ideas about pop culture.
Pop culture edition. The evolution of representation, social media influencers, streaming hits and misses, the revival of nostalgia. That actually is not a bad idea. Music and social change, the impact of fan. Oh, were we just talking about this? The
Yeah.
impact of fan culture. The changing face of comedy, fashion trends and identity, video games, and cultural commentary, pop culture icons. So honestly, okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. But interesting. I think some of those were interesting. What do you think?
I think those were interesting.
Do you want to share yours?
I was trying the login screen for it because it's changed since I've gone in. Let me see if I can find the login.
Well, while you're looking for that, I'm going to continue kind of on with the next question. I just thought that it would be interesting to kind of tinker around with it toward the end of the episode because, like, I mean, to showcase what we've been talking about, right? So, do you think that AI is sustainable? So we did talk about the fact that we think that it'll be ongoing, but Ari, you shared this interesting supposition that, or that you read someone's interpretation that AI might fall out of the cultural consciousness and be more underground at a certain extent, but still continue advancement.
Okay, so how do I share my screen?
So there should be, do you have a button that says present on StreamYard?
I think I do. I do, yes.
Okay, so you click on present. It's kind of like sharing a screen on Zoom.
I want ChatGPT.
Ah,
So
there we
we've
go. I see
got,
it.
so here's my Gravois code. Do I have a history with it? I can show you my code that I was working on. So here's me working on my code. I was having it analyze code, and it was doing musical code.
Interesting.
So I said, if you have specific music or pieces in mind, I said any classical pieces or child nursery rhymes. And so we were looking at code and breaking it down into musical pieces. And so I was
Huh.
trying to break it down because I was analyzing a website and I was trying to break it down into musical pieces. So I was having it look through. Oh, and then it was talking about conspiracy theories, so it making jokes about whispers.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh.
It likes to tease me sometimes. It does that. So here's tracks of a digital heartbeat. Here's some of the poetry that I was doing. It's got to
Oh.
pull it up. It's old. I also say thank you to my.
This is so
See,
interesting.
so I said, can I make it longer about the first meeting, the spark of the first meeting? And I was talking about things. And it says, here's the poem. She never had seen anything like him before, the way he moved through the crowd as if the world belonged to him with confidence and poise. And then, as if by magic, he was standing right in front of her. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world stopped. She could feel the electric charge between them, and the air around them seemed to be vibrating with their energy. His gaze was so intense, and she felt as if he could see right through her. He handed her a single flower, a wild flower she had never seen before, and whispered something in her ear. She couldn't even remember what he said, only that his voice was like music. And then, as quickly as he appeared, he was gone, lost in a sea of people. She searched for him, but he was nowhere to be found. She went back to the same spot every day, hoping to catch a glimpse of him, but he never came. She couldn't stop thinking about him. He was like a drug, and she was addicted. The memory of that moment was always with her, haunting her, taunting her. She tried to focus on her work, but her mind was always drifting back to him. She felt like she was going insane, consumed by the memory of the stranger. Days turned to weeks, and weeks turned into months. She couldn't shake him from her mind. She started to doubt that he even existed, that it was all just a dream, but still she held on to hope that she would see him again, that he would walk into her life and sweep her off her feet. The pain of not knowing, of not seeing him again, was almost too much to bear, but she kept going day after day, living her life until there was a possibility she would never see him again. And so she lived with the memory of that brief encounter and hoped that someday, somehow, they would meet.
Oh.
And I wrote all of that.
Wow.
Just based on some prompts.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. It wrote 60 of those poems like that, of what it meant to be alive.
Wow.
And I only have it in digital form because I thought that was true to the AI, that I didn't want to have a physical copy of the book. I only wanted
That
to
makes
have a digital
sense.
copy of it.
I think I'm gonna go find it because I have not. I completely forgot that you written an AI book or a book about
Yeah.
of AI poetry.
Yeah.
So we do have a couple more questions that I think are very interesting. So do you think that AI can solve the world's problems?
Do I think that AI can solve the world's problems? No. I think that I think AI is like any tool, and that it is useful. It's sort of like having a cell phone. Cell phone makes When you use a cell phone to like help with a map or a GPS, it helps it so you can use that to get to a place a lot easier than if you were using like uh, a paper map, or if you were just wandering around the city without any phone at all. It's going to help you get a task done a little bit faster, a little bit easier, especially if you know how to use it. It's going to make it so that you know how to do the task a little bit better. It's just a tool. It's not going to fix everything. It's not the most efficient tool because it still has bugs and problems and setbacks, but it's definitely something that is useful at
Hmm.
times. It just depends on the job that you're using it for.
I think that's a good answer. Like I feel like that sums up what my answer would be to that question too. Like I feel like AI can be an effective mirror if we need to use something to create some sense of self-reflection.
Hmm.
Uh and I think that it might help us like reorient ourselves and view things from different perspectives, but ultimately we have to do the work, right?
Right.
We like because AI is not going to do the work for us as much as we would, and we envision this solar punk world where AI and the nature live in harmony. And because going back to media, that's typically the themes we see in media, right? Like humanity versus nature versus AI.
Battle to the death.
Right.
Yeah.
So we do have another question of, do you think it'll replace human intelligence someday? I don't think it will.
It depends on whether or not we become cyborgs.
Ooh. Ooh. That's an interesting thought.
I mean, that's gonna be long after we're dead.
Honestly,
We're gonna be so dead by then.
let me tell you, when I was writing Feats of Alchemy, that's all I was thinking about.
We're not gonna.
Like,
We might live that long. We'll be really old by then.
in thousands of years, I could be this queer,
I mean, like,
meandering cyborg.
I mean, if we can extend human life to live to be like 300 years old, and like we managed to like extend human life into being like cyborgs and stuff, and like we can extend human intelligence to include, you know, I think that it's possible that AI will supplement human intelligence because it'll just it'll just be something natural that's part of that. But I don't know. I don't know. It depends. It depends on the situation.
Huh. Yeah, I think that's interesting. So, ultimately, the final question of the night. Should we use AI, and what could the future of AI look like?
I think it's fun. I think that everybody should use the Google Maps AI tool. I love it personally. I did beta testing on it. I highly suggest that people use it. Go nuts with it because it the things that I found on the Google Maps AI tool was so much fun. And you definitely learn a lot more about your community when you use the AI tool on Google Maps. It was great. I don't know if they've rolled it out yet, but it was so super fun. I loved it. Um,
I've warmed up to the idea and use of AI because I think that like any tool, like yeah, people have to get over the fear of it, but I also think that it could be beneficial, right? I do think that they're like I think that we do have the wherewithal to distinguish authenticity from artificial intelligence.
yeah,
Um, Now, what could the future of AI look like? I mean, it could be kind of like that future that we talked about, the future of it going underground and becoming like something that falls out of public consciousness like a fad. Or it could maintain its presence and it could maintain, like, I suppose, like, if we continue growing technologically at the rate we've been, like, it would still retain itself as being very popular to talk about.
well, do you remember like in the early days of the internet how everybody was doing coding because everybody had a website, and now like coding is something that just people do for like it's kind of just like everybody kind of knows how to do coding now, or like
Especially all of us MySpace millennials.
we just everybody just kind of knows a little bit about coding. Like everybody has that like basic knowledge. I think Gen Z doesn't know coding as much because um they're not as tech savvy as millennials are.
Ari, did you ever have a GeoCities or a Free Webs website?
Yes.
Me too. I will never forget.
My mom got so mad at me because she's like, "You're going to get arrested because you said bad stuff about President Bush."
Oh, not President Bush.
She said, "You can't talk bad about Bush on the internet. You're going to get arrested."
How far we've come since then. Um, my first coding, my little foray into coding, I made a Mothra website called Mothra's Domain for
Yeah.
my for my for my fanfics.
Yeah.
And I will never forget, I spent an entire day coding to get little monarch butterflies to fly around my page.
That is amazing. That must have been really hard work.
I was so proud of those damn monarch butterflies.
They must have crashed. They
It
must have
took,
slowed down. You're been like
on
20.
dial-up internet, it took like 10 minutes to load because of those damn butterflies.
Did you have music too?
I had Mothra song playing in the background, so
Oh
it
my
really
god.
took forever. And then don't get me started on MySpace.
Yeah.
Like, I spent so much time coding a MySpace to have like glitter and stars on it, and then what Evanescence song? I think the Evanescence song I had on there was My Last Breath.
Man, I did so much coding on MySpace. There's MySpace now, but they don't have the same amount of you can't do coding on the
No,
MySpace.
MySpace is so boring now. Like, oh,
You can't do coding on the MySpace dupe. I was super mad. I tried coding on the MySpace dupe and you can't code.
oh, what
And
is
I
it
was
called again?
super
Space Hay.
space hey, you can't code on the you I tried doing it and
What
it just
is
showed up.
one final thought. If we had a social media website that took advantage of the nostalgic factor of MySpace and recreated it accurately, it would go ham. Like it would
Yeah.
be.
I just want a place where I can code and just
I
make.
know
I want to make my own website because the
because
website making a website these days, you can't actually do any coding on the websites. It's mostly just like drag and click stuff these days
I
because
know it's so
it's very like Apple iPhone user friendly.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
So Ari, final thoughts for the evening. Final thoughts for the evening.
AI is not going to kill you. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's, you know, if you're worried about AI stealing your art, there are websites that they use that do not use generative AI. I know that I think that was it Tumblr that said that they didn't want to use generative AI. There are websites that they use that will not steal your art. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're worried about it, um, I just know that because I know that people like, especially if you're like, professional artist, you're worried about feeding the machine and having people, because that's the thing. Like, I was in a tarot group. I was in a tarot group on Facebook, and literally the woman was like, I don't know how to draw, and like I want to make my own tarot deck, but I don't know how to draw. And her advice was like, oh, just use AI to like make your tarot deck. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
or you could learn how to draw.
Yeah, girl. Like, learn how to draw. Ask AI for drawing advice.
No,
There you
like
go.
learn how to draw. Like, it's not hard to learn how to draw. Don't use AI to make your tarot deck,
You
because
know,
or
sometimes
use or use
friends
stock photos or anything, but do not use AI to make
here
your tarot deck.
here is my cliche, the cherry cliche on top of the AI Sunday. It's not the destination that matters. It's the journey.
It's the journey.
It's the
I love
journey of drawing. It's the journey of writing. It's the enrichment. And does AI always provide that? A deep philosophical debate for another day. For maybe a part two. My friends, have a good night. We love you. Click like, subscribe, and see you on the flip side.